Hello, everyone. The general mood right now in Ukraine is best described with the word dejected, and justifiably so. I think initially, when Ukraine's neighbors and allies started showing some support for it, the general hope was that this conflict would be treated the way it should be treated, like World War II, and that the world would set aside its differences, the countries, the governments would set aside their differences in the face of a larger threat. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And so now Ukraine is facing its second winter with no end in sight. Even Ukraine's top military officials are saying that the war is at a stalemate. Ukrainian military managed to push Russia out as far as it can. It's made significant progress at rendering Russian military in Crimea basically deaf and blind by destroying their communications, by destroying their air bases, by destroying the Navy Control Center. All that is fine and good. However, now they're facing additional challenges as the Russians are digging in, and more importantly, as they are doing the same thing they did last year, which is targeting Ukraine's infrastructure. In addition, there is also a purely political question for President Zelensky's administration. We're in a state of war on one hand. On the other hand, we want to preserve the democratic process. So how can we hold the election in the spring while the country continues to be in the state of war? How do we ensure safe and fair election? How do we keep people safe? How do we make sure that the voting places are not targeted? All these questions are now facing the existing government, and we don't know the answer yet. Following yesterday's huge attack on over 100 of Ukrainian towns and villages, Russia followed with a brutal drone attack on infrastructure. And the second part of this headline is very telling and confirms what I have been saying this entire time. For terrorist states such as Russia and its allies, such as, for example, Iran, North Korea, sanctions don't work. Even as Russia continues striking civilian targets around Ukraine's cities, in this particular case, Kharkiv, they continue to violate every possible convention. They continue targeting civilians. They continue targeting Ukrainian hospitals, power stations, kindergartens, schools, with no end in sight. And I think one of the reasons for the downcast mood in Ukraine, I mean, aside from the obvious situation that the war keeps going and people are afraid and are bracing for the winter without electricity, heat, and water, it's also the hypocrisy. I once again would like to point everybody toward the story when it was thought that Israel had bombed a hospital in Gaza. Then it turned out to be that they did not. No corrections or official statements followed. But there were protests. As I mentioned yesterday, China removed Israel from its maps. However, Russia does this to Ukraine multiple times a day. and on purpose. It's not just some stray rockets or some wayward drone. They do this on purpose. They're targeting civilian objects, and they have been doing this every day for a year and a half, almost 2 years now. Where are the protests? Where are the outcries? Where are removals of Russia from maps? Where is all that? I think that is one of the problems that people of Ukraine are facing, is the world's hypocrisy when it comes to all things related to Russia.